This is the Ready Set Podcast, and here's your host, me, Joe Persinger. Ready Set Podcast. I'm back, baby! Little break there, mid-September to now. What do we got here? End of November. Has anything really happened in between now and then? I'm not sure. We'll probably get to all that. I just want to make a few announcements really quickly here. We're just going to kind of shift things for the podcast. Instead of doing some of these long 20, 30 minute, sometimes an hour, I don't even know how they get that long because I just write like crazy, I guess. I'm going to kind of shift this into more of digestible chunks, if you will, ranging between 5 to 10 minutes. It'll be more of a, because I'm doing smaller chunks, I'm hoping to knock these out, having more than one a week. I know I said that earlier, then I went on a 2-month break, 2.5-month break, but there's a lot going on, and I just had a lot of thinking to do as far as how to produce and put this podcast together all by myself, and doing it in those 30-minute, 1-hour chunks was really becoming quite the exercise on top of the exercise that I have been doing, and it just got put off to the wayside because it was just becoming a really tall order to do all that on my own. So I decided to shift more into, I don't want to call them clips because, most people who do this would probably clip out some of their subjects and they come into that 5-10 minute, length of time. But it's not even that it's a clip podcast. I just, want to be able to I want to focus more on the quality than the quantity, I guess is kind of the thinking here. So, with that being said, I'm back, baby. That's where we're at. All right, well, yeah, let's get this thing started, and then we're going to actually jump into something that I started writing as I was getting this the 41st episode ready. And we're going to do that really quick, and then talk about something that happened last weekend, and then we're going to get out of here. All right, let's do it. Are you ready? Set podcast. All right, so where we left off last time, it was mid-September. I remember doing the podcast, and I was sitting at the TTC, and for you non-Orlando Disney fucks, that would be the Ticket Transportation Center. And as I was sitting there waiting for someone to, I don't know what it is, these fucking people love to take their time getting to their Uber. Note for you riders, that's like a dick thing to do. Anyway, I'm sitting there at the TTC waiting for these 3 ladies to get in the car, and my phone just starts notifying the fuck out of me over these news stories. And I just see 1 news story, 2 news stories, 3. I mean, generally when they come in triples like that, something just happened. So I look, and it talks about how Ruth Bader Ginsburg had passed away the night prior. So as we know, 2020 Supreme Court Death Watch had concluded on that Friday night in September. So I'm just going to kind of go over these little notes that I put down here. It'd kind of be interesting to see what I wrote, 2 months ago, and kind of what had happened in between. So, again, I'm kind of just covering the bases here for those that have been under a rock like me for the last 4 months. Not really. Notorious RBG. And by the way, I've kind of seen the right go with their whole notorious ACB. Just stop that. Stop that right now. That is not cute. This isn't cute. Don't copy them. Amy Coney Barrett. We're going to leave it at that. Notorious RBG passed away from a cancer plaguing her body since Obama was elected. A coincidence? And of course, this has sent the left into a frenzy. A tantrum. That's probably more accurate. A frenzy would suggest they're still kind of being bipartisan. They're just about it. They're literally tantrum 2.0. The left has been using the Supreme Court as a legislative tool going back to the 70s with Roe v. Wade. I mean, if abortion is so popular, if abortion is something that everyone wants, as I watch the news, why doesn't Nancy Pelosi just pass a bill? I mean, I could do a whole podcast on that subject, but I won't do that to you. And even though the Democrats have the House, their party is still not happy. And I just want to backtrack here really quick. With this, with the House, or excuse me, with the Supreme Court basically legislating through the Supreme Court, this isn't how it was supposed to be done. For one, Roe versus Wade. Okay, again, if abortion is so popular, why don't you just, you're Article 1, legislative powers, pass a fucking law. My guess is it's because deep down, or the polling probably shows, it's not that much of a slam dunk. It's probably more of a 41 to 49% split, meaning you'd be suicidal. Politically suicidal to basically run on a platform where you want to pass a law either promoting abortion or going against it. I mean, we've seen this play out in this term already, in these 4 years, with Disney boycotting Georgia over an abortion law that they passed. Only the fact that they just filmed Moulin Rouge in a province in China that has concentration camps. No hypocrisy there. And we saw this 6 years ago with gay marriage. Again, me personally, as a libertarian, which is something we're also going to break down later in the podcast, not this podcast, but coming up, I got to still pound out that whole thing. But that's kind of a little hint into what's coming. Is Joe's a libertarian, and my libertarian side is telling me that I don't even think the state should be involved in marriage, straight marriage, gay marriage. If you ask me, if you want to marry your fucking dog, by all means, do it. Hire a priest, hire someone to write your vows, write your own vows, stand in front of a table, and call yourself married. I'll recognize that union. It's kind of fucking weird, but hey, to each his own, I say, or as most libertarians say. Geez, I'm already at 7.5 minutes. I'm going to have to pick up the pace here. And if gay marriage is so popular, if this is one of those things that isn't split 41-49, pass a law. But again, it's exactly what this is. It's politically suicidal for either party to write a bill for or against it, because this is exactly why we have a constitutional republic. Because democracy is just 51% I'm fucking this up. It's 51% imposing their will over 49%. That's tyranny. That's the definition of tyranny. And we're kind of seeing a little bit of that right now. Again, we're going to get into that later this week, or whenever I get around to posting that podcast. Anyway, so these are two examples I'm using here in why the left needs the Supreme Court and why they're freaking out, in this frenzy or having this tantrum. This is what it's related to, is they know they're losing this liberal bent that's kind of been on the Supreme Court for the last 50 years. It got them Roe versus Wade. It got them, I forgot the gay marriage case. But actually, I really wanted to say something there. Again, legislating from the bench, that's not how it was supposed to be done. And like I said, if you want to marry your fucking brother, I mean, it's kind of weird, but whatever, just do your own thing. I wouldn't file your taxes together, though. That would be a giant mistake. And yeah, this is kind of why you're seeing these tantrums, is they know these days of legislating from the bench are clearly numbered. And I think at the time I wrote this, we didn't know if it was ACB. We all kind of figured that's what was coming, but there was no official word yet. And yeah, again, with these two, those two examples being used as a reason you're seeing this tantrum, is they know they're not going to be able to push things through the Supreme Court the way they have been. And this is really, you're seeing them freak out. I mean, look what they did 2 years ago with Brett Kavanaugh. They basically accused the guy of raping a woman so they could stop him from ascending to the Supreme Court. And for those that don't know or are too young to remember, that's an old tactic. I mean, you go back to when I was late 80s, early 90s, and I say that through my perspective because that's as far back as I can remember to seeing this stuff. Because, prior to that, I was an infant, and I wasn't watching the news, and I was watching Thundercats, probably. I used to only watch the news when I was like 9, 10, 11, 12 because my grandfather would come home and take over the TV. And I don't know, there's some days they didn't want to go into the basement. They probably didn't have cable down there, is my guess. So I would see these sexual accusations come out against certain politicians, and it would bury them. I mean, look at Howard Dean 16 years ago. He goes, "Pya!" Done. I mean, there was a time where a tactic like this would work, or would have worked. And it didn't. Clearly, Trump in that whole thing changed everything. I mean, you could almost argue it was Bill Clinton that changed that paradigm. Because post-98, after that Monica Lewinsky thing, and where you see Democrats saying, nothing to see here, the paradigm kind of flipped. And the other side of this coin is the left freaking out over the supposed hypocrisy of Senate Majority Mitch McConnell. So we saw this kind of come out. What about Merrick Garland? He didn't get a chance. This is a lame duck year. Why is President Trump? I mean, what's kind of funny is watching the reversals on both sides. I mean, you know, whenever you see one person accusing one side of it, they're not technically, but they're probably accusing both because both sides do it. For instance, let's go back to when Obama nominated Merrick Garland and Mitch McConnell was like, I'm not even going to try to do a cocaine Mitch impersonation, but he's like, you know, the Republicans own the Senate. Obama's in a lame duck year. There's no precedent that says that we have to acknowledge or vote on Obama's pick. So the Democrats for the last, up until RBG passing away, were waiting for this to kind of pigeonhole Republicans. Oh, well, you said this, what they said is that a president with the opposite in party Senate, oh God, because it's been so long I can't remember these precedents off the top of my head, but what they're doing is not out of the realm of crazy. Anyway, I'm totally straying from what the fuck I was trying to say originally. And that's just, you're watching the Democrats who were saying like, oh, well, you have to vote for Merrick Garland 4 years ago. Now they're saying, well, you can't vote for this nominee. Republicans, same thing. Where they were 4 years ago, they're on the opposite. But their explanation kind of rings true over what the Democrats were saying, where again, you have a president who has a Senate a Democrat president with a Republican Senate. This is the opposite of that. You have a Republican president with a Republican Senate. So, the mainstream media, the corporate media are basically, trying to get one past the rubes and hoping that they don't see what's going on there. And, it's kind of, I know, it's so odd. Politicians acting like hypocrites. What's going on in the world? Crazy stuff. I mean, in the end, you could, regardless of Merrick Garland, Obama, Trump, Amy Coney Barrett, regardless, 4 years ago, the Democrats said that the seat should be filled in an election year. Now they're saying the opposite. That's problematic. I mean, and again, Republicans, they're kind of in that same group. However, they have the Senate. In other words, they're in power in the Senate. So I guess the Democrats are just going to have to take their ball and go home. And the last thing on that one is I hate to break the news to a lot of these Democrats, a lot of these Democrat rubes, some of these Republican rubes who just kind of casually dip their toes in the political junkie waters. You need to pay attention and do your homework, you fucks. And you should probably also understand that it's a 4-year term, not a 3-year term. And then you fast forward to a few months ago, and Amy Coney Barrett she was just confirmed to the bench. And I think she barely got through. Surprise, surprise. And that leads me to our next story here, where it looked like New York religious worship groups sued Andrew Cuomo and an executive order that he passed to limit the religious worships, whatever. They're basically telling you, fuck the First Amendment. You can't go to church, bitch. And I think it was like a Catholic group and a Jewish group that sued, and it went all the way up to the Supreme Court. They picked up the case, and what do you know? The Supreme Court blocked the New York religious worship limits. I think this was an executive order by Andrew the Greaseball Cuomo, and they blocked it with a 5-4 vote, with John Roberts dissenting. And I believe one of the quotes in his dissension was, "Courts should not intervene with public health officials." Huh? Wait. What's that? Isn't your job intervention when someone is trampling on your, First Amendment right? I mean, what the fuck is John Roberts doing? This guy is a Republican. He's a Bush Republican, and he just sided with the other 3 liberals. I mean, what's hilarious is watching this guy say, well, I'm just trying to stop our court our Article 3, the Supreme Court, from being politicized. Well, guess what, bitch? It's politicized. And you saying stuff like this, it kind of shows his never Trumper politics. And it also kind of shows this guy's a swamp creature. Courts should not intervene with public health officials. Public health officials are unelected bureaucrats. You're literally there to keep these people in check. And now you have a governor, a Democrat governor, a tyrannist, basically telling people they can't worship. You can't use your First Amendment right because there's a stronger version of an influenza going around. That is ridiculous. People are adults. People can make their own decisions. You're not the ultimate decision maker for all. What are you, God? No, you're Andrew Greaseball Cuomo, and you're attempting to subvert people's First Amendment rights by limiting the religious practices? What? That's what they do in China. They take it a step further and they knock the church down and arrest the priests. And he's not too far behind that, honestly. So, yeah, it's almost like the translation of what John Roberts is saying is, leave the bureaucrats alone! Shut the fuck up, John Roberts. So 3/5 of the 5 votes that voted for these religious groups were Trump's Supreme Court picks. And it was Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito that voted with the Trump bloc. That is Wrigley. I think he needs to go outside. I will be right with you, my friend. So yeah, that's a big win for the First Amendment. That's a big win for these religious groups in New York. A huge loss for Cuomo. And it also seems that this case might have set a precedent for First Amendment religious worship limit. I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but it's a precedent for these kind of cases. So, and we're going to kind of go into this later this week, more this week. And 1 second, buddy. As much as, it's pretty obvious that Trump has lost the election. Again, we're going to get into that, a little bit more later. So even though Trump may have lost, clearly by this decision, we all have won. And as you can tell, I have to go take the dog out right now. So that is going to do it for us today. Please give us a like on our Facebook page. We are on YouTube. Smash that subscribe button. Spotify, our iHeartRadio, Spreaker. There's a few others I'm on there. I can't remember. Castbox, Podcast Addict. Let's check out our Facebook page. Please give it a like. That's kind of where the majority of all of our content is flowing through right now. And Twitter, Ready Set Podcasts. Ready Set PODCST. Haven't touched a Twitter account in a while. Twitter's a garbage trash heap anyway. But it's there. You can email us, readysetpodcast@gmail.com. And yeah, that's going to do it for us. All right, you fucks. We'll see you soon. And Klaus, hit me with some of that outro music.
Thanks for listening to the Ready Set Podcast. Check us out next week, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter and look for us on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, tell me something I don't know. Yeah, tell me.
Ready, Set Podcast.